Hello everyone, it is Matt here from Scoop in Response, and today we're going to be looking at a new commander that has been announced with the Warhammer 40K commander decks that are coming out later on this year. So pretty excited. Trazyn the Infinite is just absolutely insane. There's just so many infinite combos you can do with this card. It's absolutely wild. The name's kind of funny, I guess. I know nothing about, Warhammer, but the irony, I guess, of something that can go infinite with just about everything is pretty fantastic in something like this. So let's have a look at the commander. So we've got it's Trazyn the Infinite. It's a 4 black for a legendary artifact creature, a Necron. Whatever that means. I'm sure there's a lot of Warhammer people that know the significance of that. Not me though. It's a Death Toucher with Prismatic Gallery. So as long as Trazyn the Infinite is on the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all artifacts in your graveyard. So put stuff in the bin and you can utilize it basically. So I think the biggest and most interesting part about this commander is that it really turns all of the utility that you have on the battlefield into I guess a second life for it in the graveyard. So you can either take the approach of moving everything straight into the graveyard, using cards like Entomb and Buried Alive, or you can look at getting the first round of effectiveness with the ability on the battlefield, and then once it's actually removed, then you can actually get that second life out of it. So very cool for a kind of a mono black artifact commander. So I have taken the approach that we are going 100% balls to the wall. We are going to be just going as hard as we possibly can. This is not going to be the cheapest deck. We're trying to get to the competitive levels with this. It's not something that you want to necessarily bring out, at least this version, at the casual tables. And for good reason. It's pretty disgusting, some of the things that you can do. I think a commander like this, it's really tricky because this is the kind of thing that lots of people will build, and everyone should have a go and build a commander like this if they want to. But it's a really, really slippery slope in terms of having one infinite combo and then another. Before you know it, your decks become completely degenerate. At least this way, if you're starting from the very tip top and then you're scaling it back, you can't really pretend like it's going to be just an average deck or anything like that. This is going to be like, we're going to be doing some broken stuff. Almost every card in this deck is, I guess, some kind of combo piece, and I just wanted to, because I was really keen to get this content out as quickly as possible. We've sort of just come off the back of Dominaria, and now all of the Warhammer stuff is getting teased straight away. So I've basically been going back to back for videos. So you're not going to see the same level of polish as you might have seen in other videos recently. We're just going to be sort of doing a screen share for the most part. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're looking to do. So we will jump in. Now we're just going to be, you can probably work out that I've got this shared on my Mox field right now. So what we're going to be doing is running through everything in alphabetical order, just because it seems like the best way of doing it, given that we're just so high on artifacts. It's basically just artifacts and lands. We've got a few bits and pieces that are going to help us find artifacts, would you believe? So we'll start from, we'll just go alphabetical order in mana value is how I've got this set up currently. So Ancient Tomb, great land for any mud deck. So you've got your, tap for 2, deals 2 damage to you. Pretty straightforward for that. If you don't have an Ancient Tomb, you don't have a City of Traders, which you'll see on the top right, you can definitely add one of the shrines, whichever the one is that has both effects. I think is better rather than the one that is the Temple of the False God or something like that. I think it's the shrine that's the good one, where you actually have a regular mana ability as well. Don't get caught with that. It's a very bad card if you're just using the single ability one. Bloodstained Mire, we've got all the fetches. There's only 4 that we've got access to, 5 maybe, with Prismatic. We're just, not going to have a lot for this, so we're just thinning where we can. Bajuka Bog is, it's graveyard removal. We're a mono black deck, so this is a good way to have graveyard removal. Buried Ruin, return an artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is a way that you can protect a key piece from being, if you're getting Bojuka Bogged, if you're getting Tormod's Cryptid yourself. So this is a great way to actually, remove the card from the graveyard before it gets exiled. So we've got a few other things like, this Khan obviously lets us get things back from exile as well if they're artifacts. So it's not the end of the world. We do have some ways of getting things back. So yeah, Cabal Coffers, tap for 2, add a black for each swamp you control. We've also got the Urborg, so we're going to be able to make a lot of mana if we get those out. There's also, you'll see the Urza Saga down the bottom. We've got the expedition map so that we can get a bit of consistency in finding those pieces together overall. Castle Lochthwain is just a great card for drawing cards in a land. City of Traders is an ancient tomb that doesn't hurt you, but if you play a land afterwards, you have to sacrifice it. So just be mindful of that. It's a pretty expensive card. Legacy staple, played in a lot of decks, but yeah, very good for something like this when we're heavily into the mud. Command Beacon, sacrifice Command Beacon, put your commander into your hand from the command zone. Now, normally I don't include this card in decks, but because we are in a very heavily colorless deck with only one color, basically there's really not a lot of harm in it, and the upside of being able to cheat command attacks once is super relevant. Darksteel Citadel, really good card. It's just another artifact for Metalcraft, indestructible as well, so incidentally, that might be relevant. Gemstone Caverns, just a bit of fast mana. Inventor Sphere, it's basically gives you life for, I should really be hovering over this and using this. Inventor Sphere, we're really looking to, if we're controlling 3 artifacts and, there's not going to be a point in which you don't in this list, you gain a life each turn. We can sacrifice it to tutor for an artifact, so very cool. Jeweled Lotus, so we can get our commander out earlier. It's not too difficult with this card to be able to get the commander out on turn 2. It's just insane ramp. Lion's Eye Diamond, this is really more of a combo piece. So if you have cards in your hand in this deck that you want to be either in the graveyard or you just don't want to be drawing them, Lion's Eye Diamond, we're sort of treating this as a sack outlet as much as anything else. So we want to be able to discard our hand sometimes so that we can get those key effects into the bin for our commander to cast them. Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, more ramp for both of these. They're just, staples for any deck really, but in an artifact deck even better. So you can have Mana Crypt going into the bin after it's been, after someone's attacked you basically and killed your Mana Crypt. You've still got access to that tap for 2 through your commander. Marsh Flats, we've gone over Mox Field, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal, more fast mana, really good stuff there. Polluted Delta, we've got the 10 swamps, should be pretty straightforward for that. Takanuma, it's another way to get a key creature out of the bin. You can do it at instant speed, so really good there. Treasure Vault, it's probably a bit of a weird one, but there is probably sometimes where maybe your opponent threatens to destroy or exile your infinite, and you don't have a way to create infinite next turn. This is a good way that you can turn that infinite into a store and have 10 million treasure tokens for next turn, and that's kind of like the idea with that. It's a bit of protection for almost no downside, and it is an artifact as well, so incidentally, it has synergies. You can use your commander to do that effect too. As a saga, as you've seen, we've got all that fast mana that we can get access to. We'll have a look at heaps of the 1-drops as well. Yeah, really sick. Vault of Whispers, black artifact land, really good. Walking Ballista. So once we have infinite mana with this commander, if Walking Ballista is in our hand or it's in the graveyard, we will win the game because we have a way to create, sync the mana with the activated ability of putting the counters on Walking Ballista or your commander, and then removing it to deal damage, which is the win con. So this is a sweet card in this deck because of the fact that it does actually, be the sync and the outlet as well. So really good. Candelabra of Tornos, this is really cool. It's just a way to have, untap effects for lands that can make more than 1 mana. And if you have something like your excuse me, Staff of Domination in the graveyard, you know, you can pay 1 to untap your commander, and then you can pay, you know, X to untap 2 lands, for example. It might be like a Cabal Coffers and a, you know, a City of Traders or something like that, and you can sort of net mana. It's just another way to creatively create additional mana, and it's tutorable from Urza Saga, so you can go infinite off of that, so really useful there. Super expensive card though, it's like $1,200 US, so obviously if you don't own one of these already, don't go out and buy one for this deck. Definitely do not do that. Codex Shredder is it's a combo piece, like everything else in the list that we've gone over so far. You use this to, you can mill and untap, so you could mill your opponent out if you want to, but it's also a Scrap Trawler loop piece, so you can have Scrap Trawler, Mirror Retriever, Lotus Petal, things like that, and you can be using the activate ability to return a card from your graveyard to your hand, and you can basically go around in loops with those other cards. So there's lots of videos that sort of explain Scrap Trawler loops. I would say, you know, if you're sort of not familiar with that type of loop, just get the 3 cards, you know, get the Codex Shredder, the Mirror Retriever, and the Scrap Trawler out, and KCI or something like that. Crack Clan Ironworks, Crack Clan Ironworks, yeah, and basically just work out the infinites with that. It's pretty complicated, but you know, you'll get the hang of it. I would say if you're struggling with that, you really need to sit down and learn those things before you kind of approach, you know, playing this, you know, at a LGS or something like that. I'm sure your friends won't mind, but yeah, it's basically something that you should really get the hang of so that you can articulate the loops well. Currency Converter, this is a sick card. So every card that you discard, you get to basically get an additional effect on it, and it doesn't cost any mana. So, you know, you put a card, you discard a card, and then you can choose to exile it. So you only have to do 1 a turn if you want, or 1 per untap. You put the card into your graveyard. If it's a land, you make a treasure token. If it's a non-land, you create a Black Rogue creature token. So really sweet. Also, as a Saga tutorable, so it's a good outlet. We've also got a tap ability, you know, pay 2, tap, draw a card, discard a card, so it feeds itself. Really, really good card. Particularly in a deck where you want to put cards in the graveyard rather than cast them and put them on the battlefield. So, you know, this is like one of the biggest engine pieces that you could have for your deck. It's really, really useful in this list, and it's tutorable by Urza Saga, so really, really good. We've got Dark Ritual, you know, pay 1, make 3, pretty much enough said. Disciple of the Vault, whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from play, you may have target opponent lose 1 life. So this can be a win con, you know, if you're basically the instance we spoke about before with the Treasure Vault. If you go and make 1 million treasure tokens and then you sack them all, they all go to the graveyard and then cease to exist, and you can kill all of your opponents. So, you know, that's one of the many ways that you can do, you know, a one-shot combo with them. But there's lots of ways that you can be sort of making tokens and untapping and all that kind of stuff in this deck. This is just a piece it's 1 mana, so it's really cheap, just absolutely cheap, so good. Elixir of Immortality, another target that you can get from Urza Saga, and you can use it to shuffle your graveyard into the library if you're going to get, you know, graveyard removal. So really useful with that. Entomb's probably, you know, up there with one of the best cards in the deck. So if you have half of your combo, half of a combo in your hand or on the battlefield, and you need the other half in the graveyard, you know, you just do that. So most of the time, you're probably just going to be entombing like a Staff of Domination or something like that, or a KCI. Probably entombing a KCI is going to, you know, win you the game most of the time, provided they can't deal with your commander or your graveyard, because, you know, you've got your KCI in the graveyard, and then you've got something else on the battlefield. You know, maybe it's a Staff of Domination, maybe it's even a Soul Ring, and as soon as you have the Soul Ring, you know, you sack the Soul Ring with the KCI, with your commander, who's going to generate your mana, and then your commander can tap for 2. If you've got a Staff of Domination, then you can untap for 1 and go from there. So it's absolutely sick. Expedition Map, it's going to get you the choice lands that you need for the deck. Really, really sweet card, really useful in this list. Imperial Seal, another tutor. Going to tutor for a card, put that on top of our library. Now we do have some mill effects as well, so if you want to get things, put it into the top of your library and then mill them straight into the graveyard. You know, this is one way to do it. Kai's Ghost Form, bit of a weird one. So it's an enchantment, but it reads, enchant creature or planeswalker you control, enchanted permanent dies, you put it into exile, and dies or it's put into exile, you return that card to the battlefield under your control. So it's like a second life for your commander. So you attach it costs 1 mana, it's protection that you can do proactively, you don't have to wait until, someone does something. So if you've got extra mana, you can just cast it, and, hopefully people are going to leave your commander alone at that point. Mana Vault has insane value in this list because you can tap it for 3 from the graveyard with your commander, and it doesn't have, your commander doesn't have any kind of, only once per turn, or doesn't untap during your untap step. So, you just get to be able to tap for 3 on a 1 mana card. So really, really sick. Reanimate, you might want to put your commander into the graveyard for certain reasons, and then reanimating it out for 1, or reanimating any target creature. Really good card. Retrofitter Foundry, this is another sink. So, you've got pay 3 to untap Retrofitter Foundry. If you can generate 4 mana from a source, then, this is an infinite, from there. You can create infinite servos. And you sack the servos, you make Thopters, you make constructs and everything like that. So really, really sick, infinite mana outlet, but also just good at making blockers, so if you need early game blockers, you just want to make a servo to block a big thing, really good. Or if maybe you're in stacks or something like that, you're in a Staxy table, you can just, use it to like block a Tymna or something like that you just don't want to be hitting you every turn. Soul Ring, we don't really need to explain what that card's for. Vampiric Tutor, just an instant speed tutor, put it on top of your library, either cast whatever you search for, or, just mill it off the top of your deck. Got Arcane Signet, another mana rock. Cabal Rituals, just another ritual, really good card overall. Deadly Dispute, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature, draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. So, as we mentioned, the sacrifice an artifact is often an upside in this list, so that's why we're playing this card. It's absolutely good, it's sick as a card, but yeah, really, really sweet card overall. Demonic Tutor, another tutor, we've sort of discussed what that is. Feed the Swarm, destroy target creature or enchantment. It's not that there isn't general removal with your artifacts, but this is probably the only black enchantment removal spell that we've got access to right now, so it's a bit of a one of a kind. So really good. You lose life equal to the permanent's mana value, so no big deal. We're not too worried about our life. We're not on an Adnor's plan or anything like that. Felwar Stone, another way to ramp. Very cool. We really don't need anything more than colorless from our rocks, so the fact that this might be able to make black sometimes is kind of cool. Grim Monolith, just another big untap and tap. So if you can make 5 mana from something, then this will be your infinite outlet. But most of the time it's just, you put it in the graveyard after you've used it once, and you've got that tap for 3 each turn. Grinding Station, sacrifice an artifact, target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Sick card. This is how you're going to put all of your top of deck tutors straight into the bin, and whenever an artifact comes into play, you untap Grinding Station. So you've got all of these all of these combo pieces around Grinding Station. This isn't a new concept. Like, Grinding Station is just sick for a combo card in lots of decks. You got Blasting Station as well. I don't think we have that in this deck. We might, but I can't remember. But yeah, basically we're just using it to, sometimes we'll win off the mill plan. Other times we'll just put our relevant things into the graveyard. Infernal Grasp, just more removal. Leaden Mere, so it's a way to tap for black. So this is cool because not a lot of mana dorks in black that are non-artifact, but this one tapping for black means that all of the colorless infinites that we can make, this is a way that we can convert that colorless into black where we need to. So pretty sweet there. Mesmeric Orb, so whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. Sometimes we're going to use this to continue with the mill plan, but other times it's just going to be mostly for comboing with our Basalt Monolith, because we do not mind if our entire library goes into the graveyard. We can do all kinds of weird and wonderful things with that. Mindstone, it is an artifact that also can be sacrificed for a card draw. Mirror Retriever, when Mirror Retriever dies, return another target artifact card to your hand from the graveyard. So with Scrap Trawler, you sacrifice something, You sacrifice the Mirror Retriever, and you return that card from the from your graveyard to your hand. With Scrap Trawler, we're just looping around, going around, and generating mana or generating card draws or whatever it might be in that respect. Ornithopter of Paradise, another black mana source. Pilipala. Now this is one of our primary infinites from creatures from Buried Alive, which is one of the key pieces of the deck. So this is a part of a 3-piece, 3-creature combo. Pilipala, Palladium Mir, and the Golem Artificer, or Golem Artisan, sorry. So what we do is we put all 3 of those cards in the bin. Palladium Mir taps for 2 colorless, and then we use that 2 colorless to pay for Pilipala's ability to untap the creature, and it adds 1 mana of any color to the mana pool. So we make black. And so each time we do that, we tap 2, spend 2, make 1 black, and so we net 1 mana each loop. The Golem Artisan is because it has an ability to give your commander haste. So normally tap abilities don't work while you have summoning sickness, so you need to have a way to give haste to your commander. Plague Mir is another dork that we're going to be using to tap for mana. It's just a thing that is incidentally there. We're kind of stuck with the kind of dorks we can play in this deck, but yeah. Sign in Blood, we've got, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. You might want to mill someone and then cast it to kill them, but most of the time you're just going to be drawing cards with it. We've got Swiftfoot Boots, gives creature hexproof and haste. Absolutely sick on the commander, just insane. Really, really good ability. Because we want to protect our commander. So don't use Lightning Greaves in this deck whatsoever. We've sort of talked about this on other videos. Don't use Lightning Greaves in a deck like this, because if you give your commander Shroud rather than Hexproof, then it's going to shut you off a lot of loops that might need to target itself. So, if you have a loop that requires you to untap target permanent and do X, then you can't do that with Shroud because you can't target it. Walking Atlas, you can put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. This card's like a bit weird, but with all of the, utility that we've got with lands, and the fact that, we can tap on tap to put our lands into play with our commander, it's kind of interesting to sort of think about, having a bit of an explosion with your lands because of the fact that you can do multiple things. And so, there's even some lands that we haven't included, like a Volrath Stronghold, for example, but there's lots of ways that you can kind of instant speed protect. And these are all of the things that you're kind of thinking about, not necessarily that are going to win you the game on its own, but it's things like this that are going to allow you to win through hate, or when you're trying to win the game, you can do things to actually make sure that you win because, something gets fizzled because you're putting a land into play that is going to move the card out of the graveyard or something like that. So that's the idea with that. Basalt Monolith, tap on tap, Mesmeric Orb combo, pay 3 you tap and you get 3 colorless. If you have the Staff of Domination, which you see here, you just have to pay 1 to untap, so it's infinite colorless. Black Market Connections. 99% of the time, you're probably not going to want to do the Hire a Mercenary, but in your pre-combat main, you can just pay 3 life each turn to create a treasure token and draw a card. Absolutely insane rate in Commander, really good. Buried Alive. Search your deck for up to 3 creature cards and put them into the graveyard, then shuffle your library. This is the best card in the deck because it enables basically every combo that you could ever imagine. You can make infinite mana with this. You can go and find a creature to kill your opponents with, and with the stack of the 3 cards that I mentioned earlier, Pilipala, Palladium Mir, which is right here, and the Golem Artisan. If you have those 3, Walking Ballista, Triskelion, any of those, you just use Buried Alive to go and find the other pieces and you can win. So it doesn't matter which 3 you actually get. If you have 1 or more in your hand or in your graveyard or anything like that, it's insane. Foundry Inspector, artifact spells you cast cost 1 less. So really good there. Necropotence, it's additional draw. Palladium Mir we discussed. Rings of Brighthearth. So this is one of the few artifacts that is no good in the graveyard. We want this to be on the battlefield. So whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2. If you do copy that ability, you may choose new targets for the copy. So this is an infinite, with Basalt Monolith, as everyone probably knows this, but just in case you didn't, you can't copy the mana ability, but you can copy the untap ability. So you pay 3, or sorry, you make 3 to tap your Basalt Monolith, and then you pay 3 to untap. That's where the Rings of Brighthearth come in. You pay 2 to untap it again, and so you've paid a total of 5 mana, but you have 2 untaps, which you tap twice, and you get 6 mana. So you need, I think, 5 mana to activate it the first time, but yeah, after that it's infinite mana straight away, and really sick. Scrap Trawler. So whenever a Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card with your in your graveyard with lesser mana value. So with Codex Shredder, you can get the Scrap Trawler back. The Scrap Trawler gets the Mirror Retriever. The Mirror Retriever gets the Codex Shredder and a Lotus Petal as well to sort of do it in a loop. And then the KCI is just icing on the cake as well. Staff of Domination. So basically this card just says win the game. Untap Staff of Domination for 1. So if you've got a Soul Ring in the bin and this in the bin, you tap for 2, untap for 1, tap for 2, untap for 1. You make infinite mana, you tap for 2, create infinite life by doing the exact same loop. Instead of tapping for 2, you just sink all of the mana into gaining life. You make infinite life. You untap all of your other creatures if you want. You can tap down all of your opponent's creatures permanently. You can draw a card. All of that kind of stuff. Yawgmoth's Will, it's pretty cool. I like the card. If you don't own it, don't stick it in. It's just a way that you can get a bit of additional utility out of your cards in the graveyard that aren't artifacts. So really sweet there. Clock of Omens, tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, untap target artifact. So this is kind of the things that we were talking about, that, you need Shroud. You need to not have Shroud. So this is the kind of card that is a problem, but it's also just, another way to make infinite. So if you tap 2 shitty artifacts like your commander and something else to untap a Staff of Domination that's on the battlefield or something like that to start the engines going. It's really going to come down to the circumstances to what you're wanting to do, but basically you want to be doing something like, well, even Candelabra is a good one for that, but yeah, heaps of different ways that you can do cool shit with this card. Cryptcast doubles all of your swamps mana, so you tap a swamp, you make 2 mana. The cool thing about this is if you have an Urborg out, every land is a swamp, so you make an extra mana even if it's tapping for colorless. So yeah, Deadly Rollick is free removal. Dread Return, if we put everything into the bin, sometimes we have enough creatures that we can flash back and sacrifice 3 creatures, but it's also a reanimate spell, really good overall. Joyra's Familiar is just a cost reducer. Khan, Scion of Urza. This is going to make a construct which is going to be huge in this deck. You can also do the +1, -1 thing where you're looking at cards, exiling 1 and doing the other stuff, but mostly it's just going to make a big beater for the first time round. Kind of the Great Creator. This is sick. Your abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated, only yours, so it turns off all your opponent's mana, all of your opponent's artifact mana, and you can choose an artifact card. So people get confused with this card because there's no sideboards in EDH. The card says you may choose an artifact you own from outside the game, that doesn't matter, or in exile. And that's what you're choosing. You're choosing a card which is in exile. You're not choosing a card which is outside of the game, which is your sideboard. You're choosing a card in exile. So if someone, Swords to Plowshares, your Joyra's Familiar or something like that, or, they exile your Krat Clan Ironworks. You're not looking for something outside of the game. You're getting something from exile, which is the KCI or something like that. Or maybe, you pay 1 life and exile the top card of your library with Mystic Forge, and you didn't look, or you made a mistake and you're like, oh no, what do I do? Khan's going to get that back for you because it's in exile. KCI is a sack outlet, heaps sick card in this deck. Just absolutely insane. Mystic Forge. So you get to look at the top card of your library anytime. You can cast cards off the top if they're artifact cards or colorless non-lands. This card is really good. It's going to just keep giving you more and more card advantage. Necrotic Ooze is the backup commander in this deck. So if you get your commander exiled and removed like 5 times and it costs you 15 mana and you don't have anything on the battlefield and you just can't get it back, Necrotic Ooze can do all the things that your commander can do except for the non-creature artifacts. So if you've got Palladium Mirror, Pilipala, and the Golem, actually the Golem doesn't work. You can't give it haste because it's not an artifact. But everything else, yeah, you can basically just go off with it. So it's another infinite mana outlet. Scepter of Eternal Glory. This is, I think, the only other card that was in the Warhammer set. Really sweet card. I think that this is what, Mana Rocks should be more like this. There's been 2 really good Mana Rocks that have come out in the last 2 sets. So Dominaria had the Relic of Legends or something like that. And it was, it's a 3 mana, it taps for 1, but then you can tap an untapped legendary creature to make a mana. Now that's a good 3 mana rock, a good one. This one as well, it's really good because it creates an incentive for monocolored decks to basically play less greedy mana bases. Now in this kind of deck, it is sick because you're going to get 3 swamps. The other thing that's really cool is mono red decks in particular. You could go down that Valakut line with heaps and heaps of mountains, but then you've got this thing as well as another way to ramp really reliably. So yeah, I love this design. I think it's really good. I think 4 is fair. And I think the fact that the decks that play it, playing a 4 mana for a 3 that is colored, is really good. It's a better Thran Dynamo, and I can't speak highly enough of this because I think it's really good. Sheldred the Apocalypse. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Sometimes we're going to cast Peer into the Abyss, and we're going to kill someone, and that's pretty cool. But sometimes we're going to cast Peer into the Abyss, and we're just going to gain a boatload of life. We'll gain 50 life. And that's really cool too. Drawing 50 cards and gaining 50 life is obviously a strong thing to do, provided your opponents aren't playing Thoracle. Golem Artisan. So this is what we were talking about earlier. Target artifact creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn, and target artifact creature gains your choice of flying, trample, or haste until end of turn. So use it to give your commander haste, and bam, you've got haste, and you can go infinite and do all the wonderful things. We're getting to the end, and we have Kuldotha Forgemaster. Tap and sacrifice 3 artifacts, search your library for an artifact card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So I've included this card, but I will say there isn't any cards like, the Blightsteel Colossus. There's none of that. There's no Metalwork Colossus. There's nothing like that. There's no, we could run the Mycosynth Lattice and the Darksteel Forge. Both of those cards would be sweet. I've been trying to work out if they fit into it. This is just balls to the wall combo right now. Like, I'm sure that there's like more Staxier versions that you could put together, and this would really make sense. I think that this card is not super important in this build of the deck, but it could be one of the best cards in a deck that is designed to put particular pieces into the bin that that we want to be doing, and this is not necessarily into the bin, putting it onto the battlefield. So maybe it's a pillow fort type deck where you're just going to make everything an artifact, and then everything's indestructible, and you're going to give everything X-proof or something like that, and then you're just going to steel wings them to death. Something like that. Bolas' Citadel, it's basically the same as Mystic Forge. You're going to be using this for insane and gross card advantage. You can also kill people with it. Sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. If you've got a boatload of treasure tokens or random creature tokens, you can just sack them all. Each opponent loses 10 life. It's just another way to win. Really sweet card. Godpharaoh Statue, bit of a Staxy piece. Spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life. Really sweet. Phyrexian Devourer. So this is kind of like the OG Necrotic Ooze combo piece. So Phyrexian Devourer plus Walking Ballista or Triskelion basically gives you like a win con. So you couldn't kill everyone from full health, but you can come very, very close. The way it works is if you got the Devourer and the Triskelion in the bin, you don't even need haste because neither of them are tap abilities. If you have the Walking Ballista and the Devourer in the bin, you activate the Devourer a whole bunch of times, and then it gets a whole bunch of counters for each card in your library. So if you've got, 85 cards left in your library, you will make 85 plus 1 counters and you shoot your opponents for 85 damage, and that's going to kill 2 of them from 40 and then hurt the last one. Obviously you don't want to be like killing yourself, but if we're sort of turn 5 in a slow game, you can reasonably expect that people have been trading or fetching and everything like that. If everyone goes down to 30 health, then you're pretty well sweet. Really good because it doesn't rely on you having to be non-summoning sick, so I really like this. Ugin the Ineffable, card advantage, permanent destruction, and also reduces the cost of colorless spells. Sick card. Last card for the deck is Peer into the Abyss. So basically, target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library and loses half their life, round up each time. So when you got the Sheldred out, you're on 40 life or you're on 35 life, you lose half of it, round it up, that's 18 life that you lose, but you drew 50 cards, so you're up like 30 life overall. So really sweet card in this deck. That's pretty well the deck. So I'll just give you a bit of a look over the honorable mentions. We've got a whole range of cards that I think are really cool for this kind of deck. I just couldn't find room for them. There's so many great cards. I'm sure that there's going to be lots of other other brewers out there that are brewing this commander. This one's particularly interesting. Steal Hellkite from the bin. So you're attacking with your commander, but then you're activating and destroying all of their shit each turn because you can. Seems real fun. Unwinding Clock and Vidalcan Ori seem pretty cool as well. And then Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Darksteel Forge, and I think I might have put Market Synth Lattice in there as well. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck list. As I said, I really wanted to get this out as quickly as possible, get as many people getting their eyes over it and working out, particularly given that we're not really sure about the supply levels with this product. I personally don't know just how many decks are going to be available, what they're going to look like in a month's time, a month after the release, all that kind of stuff. At least this way ahead of time if you're going to go and pick up the Necron deck box or deck commander deck. So yeah, thanks so much if you've come here from the shorts that you've seen coming out over the last couple of days. Really appreciate you subbing and checking out the longer form deck tech. We do this for pretty much every release that comes out. So I've been working hard to get the volume of videos up as well, so it's been really sweet to sort of work on all of that. But yeah, thanks so much for checking out the video. Give us a like and a sub if you enjoyed the content. My name's Matt and this is Scoop in Response, and thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.